Hey, it's Faith Talk Live. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Radcliffe.
She's back. If you're watching Facebook Live, YouTube Live, it's Lynda MacGibbon, and she's the author of Vertical Neighborhood. We had such a great time with her last time, and she's such a rock star. We thought we'd see if we could get a hold of her. Look at her. Lynda, how are you?
I'm great. All the better for being back in conversation with you guys, because I also thoroughly enjoyed the conversation last time.
Yeah,
So
We had fun with you.
Yeah, it was a bit of a surprise when I got the invitation back, but hey, that's a sign of a developing friendship, right?
That's right.
A second invitation.
Yeah, we loved the how the book came about, because this is something you worked out. You had to work out the bugs and just everything. You put it in print, and we want to catch up with you on the book and see what's new maybe and how your neighbors are. But first, how is the book? How's it been going with that book?
You know, it's been just a really fun and encouraging experience to have this book go out into the world. It's the first time I've had a book this close to my heart go out into the world. And one of the prayers I had as I sent the book out was that it would spark conversations, that whatever happened with it, it would spark conversations about what it means to love your neighbor. Mm-hmm. And I have had so many conversations with folks like yourselves, but you know, young people in their 30s who are wrestling with questions about faith, who I've known for maybe, 20 years of their life, have called me up and said, hey, I read your book. Can we talk about some of the things you're talking about? Mm. And then I've watched some reviews and magazine articles come out that aren't just reviewing the book, but actually are taking the ideas in the book to another place. And for me, that's conversation. So I've been really encouraged. It's been a lot of fun. And it seems like people are handing it around and reading it. It's very short, so I think people can read it quickly and pass it on to somebody else.
That's good. And you said something that caught my attention is you said love your neighbor means different things to different people. What are you hearing from people as to what love your neighbor means to them that maybe wasn't what you necessarily thought originally?
Well, let me share just one conversation I had with a couple of young women, actually, who I've known since they were university students back 10 years ago. And they both asked me for a follow-up conversation because they wanted to know what's happening now in my neighborhood, what's happening now with my friendships. And I think as I may have told this to you in our last conversation, but, COVID happened, people move, people change, people move on. So all of the friendships that I write about in the book aren't necessarily in my life anymore. Some of them are. And ironically, I just connected with one person who I hadn't been in touch with for like a year the other day. But these two young women in particular were like, how do we deal with developing a relationship with somebody and then watching it end and not having it continue? And I think they both wanted to hear the ongoing story because I could say, well, I don't think things are meant to last forever. Programs aren't meant to last forever. Institutions aren't meant to last forever. And friendships don't last forever. Some of them do till the day we die, but many of them come and go. So in that conversation, we were able to talk about, who's present in front of you right now. How do you express love to that person right now? What does love look like in that context? And so it might just look like a brief conversation with somebody as you're walking by them on the street. And that's it. That's what love looks like. But it also might look like, what happened to me the other day when I was out for a walk and I came upon one of my neighbors who I haven't seen since a year ago, October. And she was sitting on the beach. I walked by her. We sat down and we just sort of looked at each other and said, we can't stop looking at each other. We're so happy to see each other. So, and then we sat for an hour and caught up on our lives. Sometimes we re-engage. So that's a bit of an answer to that question.
Yeah, no, it is.
It's interesting because, how you communicated to them, it's kind of a wake-up call in a sense, because I don't know about everybody else, but I have people in my life and I kind of put off not them, but maybe a conversation, or maybe, I'll talk to him next week, or I'll talk to him in 2 weeks, where, and you're right, friendships, they come and go, and it's like, oh, I should have said, or I could have said, or we could have had another meal. So really, when we get that thought or idea, hey, contact your neighbor or go see your neighbor or sit down and have lunch, do it.
Hmm.
Yes, and if they don't respond right away, which is what happened with my friend that I just saw. I tried a couple of times and she didn't get back to me. And finally I just said to God, I don't know what else to do. So I'm just leaving this in your hands. Like, I think I've tried to connect. I've not heard back. So, that prayer, please give me a divine encounter.
Yeah.
That's the prayer, I think. Like, who do you put in front of me? Who do you want? And I'll do what I can, but let it go. I think we can also beat ourselves up a lot about not doing enough. And I believe that one of the outcomes of all of the isolation people experienced during COVID is re-entry is not that easy for people. It's slow, it's painful, it's still scary. So there's so many different things going on, not to mention just the general climate of the world that is, or at least North America, that's polarized, and conversations are threatening to people because they don't know how they'll be received. So I think more and more my prayer to God is, well, could you make it happen? Put her in front of me, put that person in front of me if I'm supposed to be connecting with them, and help me to know how long. Yeah.
Now, you talked about meeting that friend again on the beach and sitting for an hour and talking, which is awesome. But like you said, that's hard sometimes, especially if you've been away from somebody for a long period of time. You maybe run out of things to say. I mean, was it uncomfortable at first, or were you able to just jump right back in?
It was helpful because I walked along, she was sitting on the beach, she turned around and saw me, and she smiled right away. So I felt like, okay, I'm being welcomed into her space. Right. And so then I went and said, hey, can I join you? I'm so glad to see you. And then the conversation was slow to begin. I think, the posture of listening, what's this person going to say to me? What are they going to talk about? And engaging in with them, not needing to be the one that does all the talking right away. I said, I've really missed you, but I didn't say, why haven't you responded to my phone calls? I just decided this is not the time. I'm just so glad to see her. That might come up in another conversation, but it was just, let's just take this where it goes. And, after an hour, I said to her, well, I'm going to go now. And she was going to continue sitting there. It wasn't like we needed to extend it. It just was good for what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love how that you have put this together, and it's not a 4 ways to the 7 steps. It's life. It's okay, got to go now. It's hey, let's chat. Let's have something to eat. It's not the 4 points because that's just too much work for me. But it's easy for me just to sit down and chat, and when time runs out, okay, well, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll talk to you next week or whatever. Lynda MacGibbon, author of Vertical Neighborhood. Are you working on a book too? What are you working on now?
I'm not working on a book at this point. I have a good friend who wrote a book 2 years ago, a wonderful memoir about her life as a minister's wife. And I said to her shortly after it came out, oh, what are you going to write next? And she said, I can't even imagine writing anything next. And I was like, really? That seems so strange. And then I did the same thing and immediately was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to write next. I blog and I do some writing for the work that I do with InterVarsity. So I'm trying to write, a blog every month or so is about what I put it up just on. Sometimes it's the experiences that I'm having with the book or just life in general. So, I'm writing Facebook posts. I have this fun little thing I do called Today's Perspective Adjustment. I started it during COVID, and it's like if I encounter something helpful on my walks, I'll take a picture and put it up and kind of say, I'm in the doldrums because we live in the season that we're in, but this is actually turning my eyes to something else. So I do those kinds of things, but I don't know what book will come next, because although I have lots of ideas, this book emerged out of my life.
Yeah.
And I am a journalist by nature, a storyteller. So the idea of what to write next, I'm wondering about. I do think about writing a book about friendship and the complicated nature of friendship, which would kind of be a second part of a book like this.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because go ahead, Rick.
No, go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, it's hard sometimes because we're such creatures of comfort, that getting out of our comfort zone, losing those friendships, like you said, not all friendships are forever, and when those friendships go out of our lives, it's very sad, and it's hard to start the new ones, but it's a part of life. I think that would be a great book to write about.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you know if it happens. I mean, in the
Yeah.
meantime, you know, my friend Rachel in the book, who happens to be my roommate, we've been talking how do we emerge out of COVID? What do we want to do? A couple of weeks ago, it was a friend of ours' birthday, and we threw him a park birthday. So we went to 3 different parks so people could come join us in different locations. It was a coming together of people from different places in our lives. We all didn't know each other. It reminded us both of, this is how we like to live.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't been able to do this for a long time because we haven't been able to welcome people in to our home. We haven't been able to see a lot of people because numbers have been limited. But when we did this, and all of a sudden there was people coming who I'd never met before, but he worked with them, or, you know, there was a friend who was a friend of both of us, but the third didn't know. And all of a sudden these people were mingling and connecting and meeting each other. And I felt like, this feels like the way I want to live my life, not, you know, afraid and cloistered and not meeting potential neighbors.
Yeah.
Lynda MacGibbon, she's got a book called Vertical Neighborhood. And tell us again, Lynda, they can go on your Facebook and also your blog. Lynda, we've got LyndaMacGibbon.com. Where else can they go?
So you can buy the book anywhere. Independent bookstores will order it for you. You can get it from Amazon. You can order it directly from University Press, and they'll provide it for you at good prices. So anywhere at all, it's available.
Check out her blog, LyndaMacGibbon.com. And you said you update that once a month, maybe
roughly,
even
more sometimes. It just sort of depends what's going on in my life at any given time. If I've got thoughts rolling around in my head that need to be expressed on paper.
I gotcha.
Lynda, we love talking to you. We'd love to catch up with you maybe in the fall if you're up for it.
I'm absolutely up for it.
Let's revisit. I think it's your life. You're just doing it naturally, but I think you've got something that we all wish we had, and could do it seemingly. And I know it's not seemingly to you. It's very, very easy. And it's like, wow, I wish I could do that. But thank you for sharing your life and, everything that you've gone through. I think you're really, really making an impact at a grassroots level, which is where you want to go. Right. And that really changes the world. Lynda MacGibbon, check it out. You can check out her blog. You can check out her book, LyndaMacGibbon.com. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. I'm Rick Probst.
And I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
This is Faith Talk Live.